I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is the 3 phases of relationships. As I discuss in my book, every relationship has 3 phases. This is true regardless of whether the relationship in question lasts for an evening or for the rest of your life. Let's get to it. The 3 phases are attraction, negotiation, and maintenance. They always happen in that order for what I assume to be obvious reasons. It's not possible to maintain a relationship that hasn't yet been contracted, and you won't be able to contract a relationship unless both parties are sufficiently interested in doing so. And since relationships always progress through this sequence, you can more effectively troubleshoot where you seem to be getting stuck. For instance, if you're not getting any dates whatsoever, you have an issue with attraction. On the other hand, if you're going out on dates but never seem to get anywhere, you have an issue with negotiation. And finally, if you're ending up in tempestuous short-term relationships or unsatisfying long-term relationships, you have an issue with maintenance. Each phase of relationships has its own set of problems and requires its own suite of skills to navigate. What works to maintain won't work to attract, and vice versa. Now, one thing I failed to mention in the book, and what I want to address in today's episode, is that though relationships always proceed through the 3 phases in that order, it's wrong to think that any phase, once initiated, ever terminates. That is, once you're in a particular phase, you remain in it for as long as that particular relationship lasts. Once it starts, it never stops. What does this mean? If you succeed in the attraction phase, your reward is that you now get to start negotiating. However, that doesn't mean that you get to stop attracting. You never get to stop attracting because your relationship will fall apart, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, if you stop doing so. By the same token, if you succeed in the negotiation phase, your reward is that you now get to start maintaining. However, that doesn't mean you get to stop negotiating. You never get to stop negotiating because your relationship will fall apart, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, if you stop doing so. In fact, maintaining attraction and satisfying terms is a big part of what the maintenance phase is all about. Let's look at each in turn. Too many people, men and women, mistakenly believe that once they have captured someone's affections, they do not have to worry about maintaining their partner's attraction. This is not the case. However, it happens because much of courtship is expensive and uncomfortable and uncertain. As a result, many people don't really enjoy dating and would, if possible, rather just skip right to the maintenance phase where the relationship is more easy, secure, and established. The issue with this attitude is that a big part of why your partner chose to contract with you and not with any other person to whom they had access was that he or she was attracted to you, and vice versa. Threatening the basis upon which a relationship was initially founded is not a very wise strategy for maintaining said relationship. And while women can certainly stop making an effort to maintain their partner's attraction, it is much more problematic when men do the same. This is because, for better or worse, men tend to tough it out longer than women, often out of a sense of duty or obligation. Women don't tend to stick around nearly as long, so failing to sufficiently maintain a woman's attraction will more critically jeopardize the relationship. As I discussed in a previous episode, everything you do as a man in a relationship will be perceived through a woman's lens of attraction. Her level of attraction, more than anything you actually do or don't do in that relationship, will determine her satisfaction with the relationship and the degree to which she will treat you with appreciation, love, and respect. This means, men, that on some level, you can never stop gaming your girl, even if she's your wife, like especially if she's your wife. You need to stimulate her emotions, keep her a little off balance, give her something to look forward to, etc., etc., etc. And of course, you have to maintain an attractive presence at all times. If you neglect any of these things, her attraction is going to dip, and you'll have to start putting out lots of little fires. There could be bickering, or nagging, or withdrawal, or niggling disrespect. And if it drops too low, full-out conflict or sexlessness or divorce. I wish this weren't the case. Like, I wish there was something you could do to attract someone for well and good once and for all. But this is just how it is. Accept it and thrive. Resist it and suffer. If you appreciate the insights on this channel, I would highly encourage you to get your hands on a copy of my book, The Value of Others. Over the course of 432 pages, I delve deep into my economic model of relationships and explain the behavior of both men and women in the game of mating and dating. I also provide a lot of actionable advice on how to get and keep more of what you want in the sexual marketplace. Once you read The Value of Others, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. Now available in ebook, audiobook, and paperback formats. The links are in the description. Now let's move on to the next phase. As stated previously, once you succeed in the negotiation phase, your reward is that you now get to start maintaining. But that doesn't mean you get to stop negotiating. Too many people, men and women, mistakenly believe that once they have defined the terms of a relationship, they don't have to worry about maintaining those terms over time. In point of fact, relationships are negotiated and renegotiated constantly. However, not in the way that most people think. In the context of my economic model, the term negotiation can trip people up. It can conjure images of a boardroom in which the parties explicitly define the terms of the relationship and aggressively barter for their own self-interest. And this almost never happens. Most people, in fact, would be very put off by that approach, as one of the unspoken rules of romantic relationships is that the terms of the transaction should be mystified behind a veil of indirectness and suggestion as much as possible. The closest most people come to explicitly negotiating is when they have the define the relationship conversation, in which they both pretend to understand what the other means by exclusive. The vast majority of a relationship is negotiated tacitly, unconsciously, and more importantly, behaviorally. What does this mean? People are constantly in the process of becoming who they are, which means that people are constantly changing. And this means that they're going to be showing up in your relationship in new and different ways. Some of these new and different ways you will like, others not so much. However, in either case, a relationship is renegotiated based on how you respond when your partner exhibits new and different behavior. To take a common example, let's say that a man gets involved with a woman who, at the beginning of the relationship, exhibits a very high libido and desire for sex. Over the course of their courtship, they tacitly, unconsciously, and behaviorally negotiate the price of her sexual opportunity. Let's say it's a date once a week. Over time, however, this price gets renegotiated. If the man is not careful, he might end up in a situation where he is bankrolling her entire lifestyle in exchange for a perfunctory tumble once a quarter. Neither likely discuss this explicitly or directly, but over time, the man came to pay more for less, a renegotiation that was enacted insidiously and behaviorally. And this was accomplished in large part because the man tolerated the change. He functionally stated with his behavior that he was okay with maintaining or even increasing his provision in exchange for less frequent sexual encounters. In most cases, nothing is explicitly contracted or consciously decided, but the result is the same. This is how relationships are renegotiated over time. And this is why frame management is such an important consideration for successful relationships. Men often have more power and control at the beginning of a relationship but they tend to cede that power and control to their women over time through a number of small concessions. If a woman tries to move the goalposts too soon, most men will balk and run for the hills. But if she moves them gradually, and after she has succeeded in hooking him emotionally, many men won't even notice the way the relationship is renegotiated to be more aligned with her interests and objectives. Unfortunately, the more power and control a woman assumes, the more she enters into her masculine, and the more the man enters into his feminine, which can diminish the attraction upon which the relationship is largely based, destabilizing it as previously discussed. This is why men must remain vigilant with respect to these tacit bids for renegotiation, which can occur at any time once a relationship has been contracted. By maintaining attraction and managing frame, relationships thrive, and desire can even increase over time. Sexlessness is not the fate of all relationships. It's the doom of mismanaged ones. Take that under consideration. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And as usual, please send this episode to someone who you think might benefit from its information, as it's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. And anyone looking to join my free weekly newsletter or book a paid consultation can do so on my website. The links to everything are in the description below. As always, I appreciate your support and thank you for listening.